Hi guys, welcome to this session in Microsoft Access. In this module, we're going to look at queries. So the first query we're going to do is a select query. There are three types of queries: a select query, a crosstab query, and an action query. This section is going to focus on select queries. So let's just recap what we've got. In the table customers, we've got some information there, 11 people. So I want to create a query that's going to interrogate this table and just show me people that live in Leeds. Now, if I close that down, up to the top on the ribbon, you're clicking on Create. And in the query bit, you've got two options: Query Wizard, which gives you the options of crosstab and duplicates and unique and etc., and also a sample select query. I'm not going to use a wizard for the select query. I'm going to do that myself. So I'm going straight into query design, the next option along. And then you get this query by example grid. What you have to do is add the table that you want to interrogate, or tables, as you develop your progress in Access. So you've got it over here. You've also got it on this side. It doesn't matter which way you pull it. You can drag and drop it in there, and you'll see the table with all its fields like so. So whatever you want to interrogate, you need to get down into this grid. Now, what I'm going to do is double click on the top, the title, the whole thing is selected. Then you can just pick any one of these and drag and drop them into that first column, and they will cascade along. That's how I tend to do it. Now you can see on the left hand side labels, the field name across the top, then the table that's coming from. That won't always be the same, which it is at the moment. The sort options, and if I click into one, you can see that you've got the sort options there. So it goes left to right. So if you wanted to sort by surname, you'd go like that, and then city, you'd do that one. You wouldn't be able to do city first and then come back onto surname. You'd have to go left to right. Now show, there's a little ticky box. If that tick is on, that means when you run this query, it's going to display the information. Now, next line down is the important line, criteria. That's where you type the criteria. And underneath you can see you've got OR. So you've got options for multiple criteria if you want. So I want to see people that lived in Leeds. So I'm clicking on that one. And then I'm just going to type Leeds. Click away. You get two quote symbols either side, which means Access recognizes that as a text field, which it is. Now to run the query, you'll notice that we're on the Query Design tab, and you have a Run button on the left-hand side there. I'm just going to click that, and it's showing me that there are 3 people living in Leeds. Now I'm going to save this, because remember, if I don't want the information, it's just a filter, and then you don't save it. If you do want the information over and over again, because you're going to base reports on it, you save it as a query. So I'm going to save that, and the qualifier is QRY for query. And then the way I do this, and it's totally up to you, it is TBL customers, because that's the table it's looking at, and then it's filtering for leads, if you like. That's how I like it. So I can then read that and know what it's doing over in the object window. Click OK to that. You see it popping in there as underneath queries. And then I'll close that down. So there was 3 people. Now, if I go into customers, this is how Access works. And let's say I change that to Leeds. So now there's 4 people living in Leeds. I'll change that as well to so it's all consistent to West Yorkshire. There's 4 people living in Leeds. I'll close this down. When I run that query again, I don't need to click on run. I just need to double click here, and it will open it up. And then you can see there's 4 people there instead of 3. So that's how it works. It shrinks or grows depending on whatever the criteria is. So I'll close that one down. So let's do another query. Let me look at the dates. I'm going to look at some dates. So we've got date joined. I want to know everybody who joined after 2000. So there's a couple there in 1998. Let's go for 2010, I reckon. Or after 2010. Let's try that one. So again, you go to Create. You create query design. You add the table that you want to interrogate. You double click on the title, and you drag and drop them all down into the grid. Now the date field, date joined, I need to do greater than, and I'll go 0101 2010. I could probably just put 10 there, but this is key. When you click away from that one, you're expecting to see these hash symbols, which means that Access recognizes that as a date field, which it must be for this to work. And now if I run that, let's see what we've got. So we've got quite a lot there. It tells you down the bottom there's 1 of 9, so basically just 2 records knocked off that don't marry up to that criteria. So again, I'll save that, and I'll just call this QRY after 2010, like so. Clicking OK to that, and then closing that down. Now let's create another query. This time I want to know everybody that worked for Bob IT and is in Newcastle. I want that information. So again, I'm going create, query design, dragging the table on, double clicking at the top, and then pulling that down and dropping it in there. So there is company. So on the criteria line, Bob IT and is in Newcastle. So this is and Newcastle, and that's 2 items I'm asking for. When I run that, I get 2 people. So I'll save that one. I'll call that QRY Bob IT Newcastle. And remember, you're only doing these queries if you want this information over and over again. What you don't want to be doing is filling up this window, or this pane should I say, with loads of queries that you never ever use again. That means you should have just done a filter and then deleted it. A lot of people make that mistake. You don't create queries when it should be a filter. So I'll close that one down. So that was and. Now let's try another one. Let's do an or. So create query, query design, add in the table, double clicking and dropping it down. So this time I'm going for leads. Or next line down, Brad Ford. Leads or Bradford. Running that query, and I get Leeds and Bradford. And then you can save that one. I'm not going to save that one. I'm just going to go back into design, because sometimes when you do the criteria and run the query, it doesn't give you the right answer. So what you don't want to be doing is deleting it and then starting again. You just come back into it and just check that you've put the right information in there. That's all you have to do. In this case, it is correct, so that's fine. If you do end up deleting stuff, like getting rid of Bradford there, you notice how I've purposely left them quotes? That is really dangerous. It's not even letting me do that. Look, I've got to get rid of everything in there and make sure it's completely cleared off before you type something else. Now, some people think you can do and in there, use the word and, like Leeds and Bradford, but Leeds and Bradford don't appear in that column together as a pair. Now, there might be information sometimes where that does apply, and you could put Leeds or Bradford, but that would only be if you had a column where it had Leeds space Bradford, and then it would bring back that information. But as it is at the moment, it is not going to do that. So I'll go back into design. There's one last thing I want to mention here. I'm going to delete all of these columns. So you can just delete these columns by selecting them and then pressing delete. I've been telling you to bring the fields down in a particular way because I find that easier, but there's a few different ways that you can do it. This little asterisk, if I double click it, it brings the whole set down as a block. If I run the query, you'll see that all the columns are there. You might be saying, why would I do that? The idea behind that is that you would then go city, say, and you take the tick off so it doesn't show it, but I'll leave it on for now, but I'll do the criteria, put Leeds. I'm not going to save this, so it's using that, but there's 2 city columns down now. See what happens. It's still going to show me Leeds, but you've got this extra column where it says field, blah, blah at the end. So what you do in design is you take the tick off that, and then when you run it again, it won't show it, but it still gives you the criteria. So that's a tidy way of doing a query, if you think, because you don't have to have all the extra columns in there displayed, and you don't have to scroll across to see where the criteria are. You can just do it like this, and you could bring another column down, take the tick off, not show it, and so on and so on. Now let's get rid of that. Delete those two. So that was one way, 2 ways. So the third way, I could go double click, they come down like that. I could drag and drop individual fields like that. Or I could come into the top of this column and select from the list like that. All valid ways of getting the data into this grid. And you do not need to bring all the fields down, but I tend to do it as a matter of fact, and then you can take the ticks off if you don't want that information. So they're just different ways of filling up the query by example grid at the bottom there. So that's all I want to talk about in this little session, how you can do a basic select query in Access. So thanks for your time, and I'll catch you in the next one.